I was told to deliver this message.
If our actions do not correspond with the dictates of time, our actions produce loss. We can agree with that. Now, many of you may have heard the Honorable Elijah Muhammad speak at some time. Some people said Mr. Muhammad didn't speak well. I know. And in truth, if you deal with grammatical sentence structure and whatnot, we may say in that technical sense he didn't speak well. But in the truest sense of the word, he spoke more eloquently than any black man that has ever stood among us. Yes, sir. And in the truest sense of the word, he taught me a very profound English lesson one day that I would like to pass on to you. And this seems like a very highly intelligent audience of grammarians. Now, you know, I'm speaking specifically now to Muslims, that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that if we didn't speak the language, we would not be successful. You heard that, right? Yes, sir. Very good. Now to our general audience, every discipline has an accompanying language, correct? Yes, sir. There's the jargon, as it is called, of every particular discipline. And if you're in a particular discipline or field, and you do not speak the language of that discipline well, you do not communicate well to your peers. Therefore, through that lack of communication, it sets up tension. Easy disagreement because of misuse of language. All praise is due to Allah. This being true, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to me one day, he said, you know, brother, to speak English correctly, you must have verb and subject agreement. And we certainly can agree with that, right? If the subject is in the present, the verb or the action word must be in the present tense. If the subject is dealing with the past, then the verb or action would tell us that it's the past tense. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, black people do not communicate well. We are suffering loss today because of communication problems. We have communication problems in the home. We're not communicating well with our mates. We're not communicating well as a community. We're not communicating well as a people. We're certainly not communicating our feelings or aspirations to the people who make public policy. Is that true? Yes, sir. So the lack of communication is increasing the tension. And the increase of the tension is increasing the possibility and the probability of racial conflict. Are we correct? Yes, all right. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to us that if we are in the present, 1981, and our actions can be determined to belong to the past, then we are not speaking correctly. Therefore, we will not be successful. We are in the present, 1981, but our actions belong to the slave past. Our actions depict a slave mentality, though we say we are free. Well, if we are free in the present, but our actions are a slave action that belongs to the past, then we are in verb and subject disagreement, and we are not speaking grammatically correct. Therefore, our tense is off. Our action is off. So the action being behind the subject in time, it increases the, we say the lack of coordination between the subject and time. And it increases then tension. So now, because we are not in the right tense, we have increased tension. And since we have increased the tension because our actions belong to the past, then this tension sets up stress. And this high stress increases hypertension, which leads to high blood pressure and stroke. High blood pressure, heart attack, and stroke. Now, dear brothers and sisters, you are being continually stroked. And the stroke, every stroke that you get is such a shock to the system that it leaves something paralyzed, unable to use the hand. I don't understand what went on a few weeks ago. We seem to get a stroke. When Reagan moved in, stroke. Yes, a shock. After you did all you could to get Carter in, and the man that you didn't vote for became your president. That was a shock. That was a stroke. And it paralyzed some of us. We became paralyzed with fear. We became paralyzed with mass hysteria. This is true. Black folk today, when Reagan followed a course that he has to follow, cut back. Y'all didn't vote for him. He's the president of all the people, but since you are not even considered people, cut back on anything that benefits you in order to benefit the country. This again, another stroke. Increase in what? Tension. Increase in what? Stress. Stress on who? The black community. Why? Because you don't speak well. Why? Because grammatically you're not proper. Grammatically, your language is off because you are trying to communicate in the present with an action that is out of date. It is out of date that black people should depend on white people for all of our necessities of life. It's just out of date. It is out of date for you to look to them to provide you with jobs after they provided you with education that should have permitted you to provide these things for yourself. It is out of date. It is a slave mind. Listen to me good. It is a slave mind that is going to look to Reagan, look to the government to give you education, to give you jobs, to build homes for you, to do things for you that you and I have neglected to do for ourselves because we claim to be a man, but our actions are that of a child. So when you have a grown man that acts like a child, he's either a moron or an imbecile or what? A functional illiterate, but he's in that category. I have a job today to speak to 30 million morons. Oh my God, I didn't come here to this dinner to be insulted. But you're a grown man and a grown woman, but you function on the level of a child. You have never grown up psychologically, you have never grown up emotionally, and you're still hanging back in the childhood days of irresponsibility, looking for mom and dad, I mean white mom and white dad, Uncle Sam, to do for you what you are big enough and black enough to do for yourself. Out of time.